The morning sun glinted off the polished glass of the Horizon Auto Group headquarters as Michael sat at his large oak desk, staring at the customer satisfaction report in front of him. For the third month in a row, the numbers had dropped. 7 years as CEO, 15 dealerships across the state, and record profits each quarter, but something wasn't right. Michael ran his hand through his graying hair and sighed. He had built this company from just 3 small locations into what people called the most trusted name in auto sales. At least, that's what their old slogan promised. Now he wasn't so sure. The phone on his desk buzzed. "Your 10 o'clock is here, sir," his assistant called through the speaker. The weekly executive meeting, same faces, same excuses. Michael straightened his tie and walked to the conference room, where 5 regional managers waited with their perfectly prepared presentations and rehearsed smiles. "The numbers are just a temporary dip," said Tom, the longest-serving manager. "It's happening industry-wide. Nothing to worry about." "Our sales are up 15%, added Lisa, tapping her manicured nails on her tablet. "A few unhappy customers are just part of the business." Michael looked around the table as heads nodded in agreement. These people weren't lying to him. They simply didn't know. They hadn't walked the showroom floor in years. They saw spreadsheets, not people. "What about the online reviews?" Michael asked, pulling up a page on the screen behind him. 1 star, 1 star, 2 stars. Someone wrote that they'd rather walk 20 miles in the rain than buy another car from us. That doesn't sound like a temporary dip. The room fell silent. Finally, Robert from marketing spoke up. "We can offer some incentives for positive reviews. Maybe a gift card program for—" "No," Michael cut him off. "We don't need fake good reviews. We need to actually be good again." After the meeting, Michael stood by the large windows overlooking the city. 15 years ago, he had sold his first car, a beat-up blue sedan, to a young couple who had saved for 3 years to afford it. He remembered their faces, their story, how they trusted him to help them make the right choice. When had Horizon stopped being about those moments? That night, Michael couldn't sleep. His wife found him in the kitchen at 2 a.m., making tea. "Still thinking about work?" she asked, wrapping her robe tighter against the chill. "Something's wrong with my company, and nobody's telling me the truth," he said, stirring his tea absently. "Or maybe they don't even know it themselves." "So find out for yourself," she said simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. The idea took root instantly. He wouldn't announce a surprise visit. Managers would just put on a show. He needed to see the real experience through the eyes of a regular customer. The next morning, Michael canceled his meetings for the following week. He told his assistant he was taking personal time, something he hadn't done in 3 years. Then he made a list: average clothes, a different hairstyle, perhaps glasses. He would need a backstory too, something believable. A plan formed in his mind. He would start at the flagship store, the very first dealership he had purchased, the one that started it all. Most of the staff there wouldn't recognize him. It had been over a year since his last visit, and turnover was high. For the first time in months, Michael felt a sense of purpose beyond profit margins and growth reports. He was going back to the beginning, back to what mattered. He would see firsthand what had happened to his dream, to find out why customers who once sang their praises now warned others to stay away. "Time to remember what it feels like to be on the other side of the desk," he whispered to himself. 2 days later, Michael stood in front of his bedroom mirror, barely recognizing himself. His wife, Diane, circled him with a critical eye, makeup brush in hand. "Hold still," she said, adding a few touches of gray to his temples. "You keep moving." "Sorry," Michael replied, adjusting the unfamiliar weight of the glasses on his nose. "It's just strange." The man in the mirror wasn't Michael Harrington, CEO of Horizon Auto Group. His normally neatly combed hair was now slightly messy and styled differently. A 3-day beard covered his usually clean-shaven face. Instead of his custom-tailored suit, he wore faded jeans that Diane had picked up from a local department store, along with a plain blue button-up shirt and a brown jacket that had seen better days. "What do you think?" he asked, turning to face his wife. Diane stepped back, tilting her head. "Honestly, I wouldn't recognize you at a distance. Those glasses change your whole face." Michael adjusted the non-prescription glasses again. They felt odd, but they did change his appearance significantly. The final touch was a worn baseball cap for the local team. "Now for your story," Diane said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "You need something simple but detailed enough to be believable." They spent the next hour crafting his new identity. Michael Harrison, a middle school history teacher with 12 years of experience. Divorced, no kids, living in an apartment across town. His old car, a 2012 sedan, was starting to have transmission problems, and he had been saving up for something more reliable. "How much should I have to spend?" Michael asked, making notes on a small pad. "Teachers don't make what they should," Diane replied. "Maybe $25,000 to $30,000? And you should be a little nervous about the purchase. It's a big decision for someone on that salary." Michael nodded, impressed by his wife's attention to detail. "You're good at this. Should I be worried?" She laughed, throwing a pillow at him. "Just don't get too attached to that beard. It scratches." The next morning, Michael drove his personal car, not the company-provided luxury SUV, to a coffee shop across town. From there, he called a rideshare to take him to the flagship Horizon dealership on Central Avenue. It was the very first location he had purchased, the cornerstone of what became his auto empire. As the car pulled up to the familiar building, Michael felt a flutter of nervousness in his stomach. The last time he had visited was for a ribbon-cutting ceremony after the showroom renovation over a year ago. Since then, according to HR reports, almost 70% of the sales staff had turned over, a number that should have alarmed him sooner. "Good luck, man," the driver said as Michael got out. "Don't let them talk you into all those extra warranties and stuff." Michael thanked him, making a mental note of the comment. Was that the reputation they had now? Standing in the parking lot, he took a deep breath and slipped into character. He hunched his shoulders slightly and adopted a more hesitant walk. Michael Harrington strode into rooms with confidence, commanding attention. Michael Harrison would be more cautious, more easily intimidated. He practiced a few lines in his head. "I'm just looking right now. My budget is pretty tight. I've been saving for a while." A salesperson watched him through the glass doors, eyeing him with an expression Michael recognized all too well, sizing up his worth by his appearance, calculating the potential commission. With one last deep breath, he pushed open the door and stepped inside, ready to experience his own company as thousands of customers did every day. The glass doors swung shut behind Michael as he stepped into the showroom. The familiar scent of new car interiors and lemon-scented cleaning products filled the air. Sunshine poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, bouncing off polished hoods and chrome trim. This should have been an exciting moment for any car buyer. Instead, Michael felt a growing unease. The showroom was busy with Saturday morning shoppers, but something was off. As CEO, he had personally written the customer experience guidelines years ago. Every visitor should be greeted within 30 seconds. The coffee station should be fresh and fully stocked. Brochures should be neatly arranged by model. None of that was happening. The coffee pot sat empty, its glass stained brown. Brochures were scattered across tables or stuffed haphazardly into display racks. A young woman at the reception desk scrolled through her phone, glancing up occasionally, but making no effort to welcome anyone. Michael wandered over to a mid-sized sedan, one of their most popular models, priced right in his fictional budget range. The window sticker had a coffee stain on one corner. He peered inside, noting the features he had personally approved during the last design meeting with manufacturers. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. No one approached him. A family with 2 kids was getting plenty of attention, though. They were being shown a luxury SUV by an enthusiastic salesman. Michael overheard enough to realize they were being quoted monthly payments instead of the total price, a tactic he had specifically asked his sales directors to avoid. At the 17-minute mark, Michael kept checking his watch. A young salesman finally approached. His name tag read Dave. His shirt was clean but wrinkled, and his tie hung slightly crooked. "Hey there," Dave said with a quick, practiced smile. "Just looking around today?" "I'm interested in buying a new car," Michael replied, trying to sound like a somewhat nervous teacher. "My old sedan is starting to have problems." Dave nodded, but his enthusiasm seemed to dim when Michael didn't immediately mention a specific high-end model. "What kind of budget are we working with?" Dave asked, his pen hovering over a small notepad. "Around 30,000, Michael answered. Maybe a bit more if the financing terms are good. Something flickered across Dave's face. Disappointment? Annoyance? He quickly covered it with another smile, but Michael had caught it. Well, that limits our options, Dave said, steering Michael away from the car he had been looking at. These models here start at $35, and honestly, you'd want the upgraded package. Michael pointed to the sedan he'd been examining. What about this one? The sticker says $28,000. That's the base model, Dave said dismissively. Nobody really wants that one. No power seats, basic sound system. He guided Michael toward a row of more expensive vehicles. These give you much more for your money. As they walked past the reception desk, Dave caught the eye of another salesman and muttered, "Teacher budget," with a slight roll of his eyes. The other man gave a knowing look. "Let me show you this one," Dave continued, stopping at a sleek black model that Michael recognized as their premium line. "I know it's a bit above your range, but we might be able to work something out. The commission, the customer satisfaction, is much better with these." Michael felt his stomach tighten. Commission-driven sales. Dismissive attitudes toward budget-conscious customers. Steering people toward more expensive models regardless of their needs or wants. As Dave continued his practiced speech, Michael glanced back at the couple, who were now heading for the door, brochures left behind on a table. Another lost sale. Another family who would tell their friends to avoid Horizon dealerships. The company Michael had built with pride was falling apart, one customer at a time, and his own employees were either causing the problem or hiding it from him. Despite the knot in his stomach, Michael decided to see the process through to the end. If he backed out now, he'd only have half the story. He needed to experience everything his customers did, all the way to signing the papers. "I'm interested in the silver sedan we looked at earlier," Michael said firmly, interrupting Dave's pitch about the luxury model. The one priced at $28,000. Dave's smile flickered. "Really? I thought we'd moved past that one." He sighed, not bothering to hide his disappointment. "But it's your money. Let's take it for a test drive at least." The test drive was rushed, with Dave directing Michael through a short route that barely left the parking lot. When Michael asked about taking it on the highway, Dave checked his watch and mentioned another appointment coming up soon. Back at the dealership, Dave led Michael to a small office with peeling wallpaper in the corner. "Wait here while I get the paperwork started." Alone in the room, Michael noticed the framed mission statement on the wall, one he had written himself nearly a decade ago. "We build relationships, not just sell cars." The glass was dusty, and the frame hung at a slight angle. 15 minutes later, a heavy-set man in a tight suit entered without knocking. The name badge on his jacket read Bill Finance Manager. "So you're interested in the base model?" Bill asked without introducing himself, dropping a folder on the desk. "Dave says you're a teacher." Michael nodded, staying in character. "Well, lucky for you, we can make this work." Bill's tone suggested he was doing Michael an enormous favor. "Let's go through some numbers." What followed was exactly what Michael had trained his staff not to do. Bill presented confusing figures, switching between monthly payments and total prices. He spoke quickly, using industry jargon without explanation. When Michael asked questions, Bill would answer impatiently and move on. "Now, you'll want our protection package," Bill said, sliding a glossy brochure across the desk. "It's just an extra $45 per month." "What does it cover exactly?" Michael asked. "Everything," Bill replied vaguely. "Interior, exterior, mechanical. It's comprehensive." Michael had written these protection plans himself. He knew they cost the dealership about $300 total, but were sold to customers for nearly $3,000 when financed. "I'll pass on that," Michael said. Bill's expression hardened. "Look, I don't think you understand. This vehicle needs protection. Without it, any little scratch could cost hundreds to repair." For the next 20 minutes, Michael endured high-pressure sales tactics for extras he didn't want or need, extended warranties, paint protection, gap insurance, all presented as essential, all with inflated prices. When Michael questioned certain charges, like a $599 documentation fee, Bill became noticeably irritated. "Look, if you want a deal, this is as good as it gets," Bill said, leaning back in his chair. "We're already losing money on this sale." Michael nearly laughed out loud. He knew the exact profit margin on every model they sold. This particular car had a dealer markup of nearly $4,000 over invoice. They weren't losing a penny. "I just want to be clear on what I'm paying for," Michael insisted. Bill sighed dramatically. "Listen, I've got 3 other customers waiting. Do you want this car or not? Because I can't hold it if you walk out that door. We've got people lining up for these models." Another lie. This model had been sitting on the lot for 67 days. Michael had reviewed the inventory reports just last week. After an hour of pressure, confusing paperwork, and last-minute additions, Michael finally signed. No congratulations followed. No welcome to the Horizon family, as their training manual specified. Bill simply slid the keys across the desk with a curt "Finance will call you when your first payment is due." Walking out to his new car, Michael felt a mixture of anger and sadness. He had bought many cars in his lifetime, but never had he felt so disrespected as a customer. And this was happening in his own company, under his name. That night, Michael sat in his study, staring at the key to his new car. He'd spent $28,000 on a vehicle he didn't need, but the experience was worth every penny. Now he knew one dealership's problems firsthand. But was it just that one location, or had a culture of greed and deception spread throughout his entire company? He needed answers. Over the next 3 weeks, Michael embarked on a secret tour of his own empire. He changed his appearance slightly for each visit, sometimes wearing different glasses, sometimes a hat, once even dyeing his hair a lighter shade. For each dealership, he created a new backstory: a retired firefighter, a construction supervisor, a divorced accountant. The only constant was his modest budget, which seemed to be the universal trigger for poor treatment. At the second location on Maple Street, a young salesman named Alex barely looked up from his phone when Michael entered. The showroom was clean but eerily quiet, with salespeople huddled around the coffee station rather than helping customers. When Michael finally got someone's attention, he was immediately shown the most expensive models. "I'm on a fixed pension," Michael explained, using his firefighter persona. "My budget is firm at $30,000. Alex rolled his eyes openly. "Then why are you wasting my time? Maybe try the used car section." At the third location downtown, the experience was slightly better until the finance office. A woman named Lisa presented him with a worksheet covered in so many numbers it made his head spin, and he understood car financing better than anyone. "Why are there 3 different processing fees?" Michael asked, pointing to charges he knew didn't exist in their official pricing structure. Lisa smiled sweetly. "Those are standard. Everyone pays them. Would you like some water while we finish up?" Standard? They were completely made up. Michael had specifically prohibited hidden fees in all company communications. The 4th dealership in the suburbs shocked him for a different reason. While pretending to shop for a car for his fictional daughter, he overheard a sales meeting in progress. Through a partially open door, he watched as a manager berated his team. "If you're not selling warranties, you're not trying hard enough," the manager shouted. "I don't care if they say no, keep pushing. Remember, base model buyers are just taking up space unless they buy protection packages." Michael felt sick. These were his employees, trained to treat customers with respect, now being coached to pressure and manipulate. At the 5th location, he discovered something even more disturbing. While signing paperwork for a test drive, he noticed a memo on the sales manager's desk: "Bonus structure change, effective immediately." Curious, he read it upside down. The generous profit-sharing program he had implemented for all employees had been quietly modified. Now, only sales managers and above received bonuses. The regular sales staff got nothing extra for good performance. No wonder morale was low. No wonder turnover was high. His regional managers had gutted one of the key programs designed to keep employees happy and motivated. The final dealership visit nearly broke his heart. Posing as a small business owner, Michael watched as an elderly couple was systematically confused and pressured into buying a car far beyond their needs. The salesman, a smooth-talking man in an expensive suit, used every trick in the book: hidden fees, misleading monthly payment calculations, unnecessary add-ons presented as mandatory. "My wife has trouble walking," the old man explained. "We just need something reliable to get to doctor appointments." "This luxury SUV has the best safety features," the salesman insisted, ignoring their actual needs. "And at only $699 per month for 84 months, it's a steal." Michael did the mental math. They pay nearly $60,000 for a $45,000 vehicle, plus interest. And at their age, an 84-month loan was predatory. Between dealership visits, Michael also called the service departments, posing as different customers with various problems. The results were consistently disappointing. Long hold times, rude service advisors, appointments scheduled weeks out, and follow-up calls that never came. One service manager even suggested that if Michael didn't like waiting, he should buy a better car next time. After 3 weeks of investigation, Michael had filled 2 notebooks with observations. The pattern was undeniable: high-pressure sales tactics, deceptive pricing, poor customer service, and a complete disregard for the values he had built his company upon. Worse, he discovered that employee morale was at rock bottom. During lunch breaks at nearby restaurants, he overheard Horizon employees complaining about impossible quotas, toxic managers, and a work environment that rewarded dishonesty over integrity. The profitable empire he thought he'd built was actually a house of cards, held together by manipulation and short-term thinking. His managers had prioritized immediate profits over long-term customer relationships, creating a culture that would eventually destroy everything he'd worked for. Sitting in his home office late one night, surrounded by evidence of his company's failings, Michael made a decision. He wouldn't just fix a few problems. He would transform Horizon Auto Group from the ground up, even if it meant firing long-time managers and temporarily sacrificing profits. His customers deserved better. His employees deserved better. And he wouldn't rest until he made it right. 6 weeks after his first undercover visit, Michael Harrington stood at the podium in Horizon Auto Group's largest conference center. Every manager, from regional directors to dealership supervisors, stepped before him. The usual pre-meeting chatter was absent. Word had spread that this was no ordinary gathering. Michael began without his usual pleasantries. "I've spent the last 6 weeks buying cars from our dealerships," he said, letting the words sink in. "Not as your CEO, but as a regular customer." A wave of whispers swept through the room. Several managers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Michael clicked a remote, and the screen behind him lit up with photos, himself in various disguises at different dealerships. "I was a teacher, a firefighter, a retiree. And at every location, I experienced something that made me ashamed to own this company." For the next hour, Michael detailed his findings. He played audio recordings of salespeople lying about prices. He showed hidden camera footage of finance managers adding unauthorized fees. He displayed screenshots of internal memos that directly contradicted company policy. By the time he finished, the room was silent. 3 regional managers, the ones who had secretly changed the profit-sharing program, sat pale-faced, knowing their careers were over. Effective immediately, Michael announced, the following changes will take place. He unveiled a comprehensive reform plan that would shake Horizon Auto Group to its core. First, the leadership purge. The 3 regional managers were terminated on the spot, along with several dealership managers who had fostered toxic environments. Security escorted them from the building as their colleagues watched in stunned silence. Next, the commission restructure. From now on, Michael explained, 50% of every salesperson's commission will be based on customer satisfaction scores collected 6 months after purchase. If customers aren't happy with their cars or our service, neither are we. The room erupted in murmurs. This was revolutionary in the auto industry. Michael continued with his reforms. The profit-sharing program was restored to its original design, benefiting all employees. Hidden fees were eliminated. A new transparent pricing model was introduced where customers could see exactly what they were paying for. Most importantly, a robust mystery shopper program would ensure ongoing accountability. But the biggest change, Michael said, his voice softening, is that I'll be working on the sales floor myself. 2 days every month, at different locations, unannounced. If I expect you to treat customers with respect, I need to lead by example. Over the next few months, the transformation was remarkable. At first, some salespeople quit, unwilling to adapt to the new customer-first approach. But those who stayed discovered something surprising. honest selling actually worked better. Customer satisfaction scores began climbing within 3 months. Online reviews shifted from 1-star complaints to 5-star praise. Word spread quickly in communities about Horizon's new approach. "I can sleep at night now," one salesman told Michael during a floor shift. "I'm not lying to people anymore. And you know what? I'm actually making more money because customers trust me and send their friends." Employee turnover dropped dramatically. The toxic atmosphere was replaced by genuine teamwork. Service departments, now properly staffed and managed, began receiving thank you notes from customers instead of complaints. 1 year after Michael's undercover mission, Horizon Auto Group celebrated its best financial quarter in company history. Profits had increased by 22%, employee satisfaction was at an all-time high, and customer retention had improved by 47%. At the annual company celebration, Michael shared one final story. "Remember those 2 customers I overheard in the showroom? The ones who said our service department was a nightmare." He paused, scanning the crowd of employees. "I tracked them down." The room fell silent as Michael described visiting the couple's home, personally delivering a new car to them, free of charge. "I included a simple note: 'Thank you for helping me see the truth.'" The couple, stunned by the gesture, became Horizon's biggest advocates. They shared their story on social media, generating thousands of positive comments and attracting new customers who admired the company's commitment to making things right. As Michael concluded his speech, he looked out at his employees, people he now knew by name, whose families he'd met, whose dedication had saved his company. "We learned that success isn't about fooling customers with clever tactics. It's about earning their trust every single day." The applause that followed wasn't the polite clapping of corporate events. It was genuine appreciation from people who had rediscovered pride in their work. Later that evening, Michael sat in his office, looking at the original mission statement he'd written years ago, now freshly framed and hanging straight. "We build relationships, not just sell cars." For the first time in years, those words rang true. His undercover journey had cost him some long-time managers and required difficult changes, but it saved something far more valuable, the soul of his company. And in the process, it reminded him why he'd started Horizon Auto Group in the first place, to help people find reliable transportation with dignity and respect. Sometimes, he realized, you have to lose yourself to find what really matters.